Welcome to Sarat Chandra IAS Academy, where your dreams are our mission. This is Yatharth here, and today we are going to discuss about a very important topic, constitutional amendments. So we'll be dealing with this topic stepwise in an orderly manner, and in the final stage we'll see the all important amendments and we'll cover them. All right, let's come to the question which came into prelims this year. Just a second. All right. So in India, which of the following Constitutional Amendment Act was widely believed to be enacted to overcome the judicial interpretations of the fundamental rights? First Amendment, 42nd, 44th, 86. Alright, so these are the listed amendments. This was an easy question to say. I've already covered it. I've covered the fundamental rights as well in the last lecture. We covered all fundamental rights in the last lecture as well as the DPSP. Alright, and fundamental duties also, FD, as well as preamble. So there's no need to talk about them. You can just watch the previous lecture. Moving on, there are some specific things that we need to cover before we answer this question. This was in news also due to the Keshwanand Bharati case, the basic structure case also. Alright, so let's move to the steps. So how to reach here? How to reach the list of constitutional amendments? Alright, so this is the one of the final steps. We need to see few things before we reach here. The first thing is the structure of the parliament. What is parliament and what are the parts of parliament? We need to see who is the president in very short and which articles deal with the president. Moving on to the houses. What are the houses? What is their strength? And what is meant by the strength? Alright, because strength eventually deals with the majorities. Whether it is a simple majority, whether it is a special majority. We'll also see the houses and we'll see why the, let's say, agreement of the states is necessary for some of the amendments. We'll then see procedure of amending the constitution, that how can our constitution be amended, how does article 368 work, and finally we'll move on to the important amendments. This will finish our topic to say. Alright, so the first thing that we'll move to is the parliament. Okay, so the parliament has three parts. It consists of president, the president of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, and the two houses. Two houses, the Lok Sabha, the House of Public, and the Rajya Sabha. When we see about these two houses individually, we'll see their importance. The Lok Sabha, we'll see how MPs come. They are directly elected. These ones are indirectly elected. And we'll see about the president a bit. So moving on to the president from here. I'll do it on the next page. Okay, so the president of India. So which articles deal with the president of India? There are Article 52 to Article 62. This is one important fact that you must know and remember. And where is the president mentioned? He is mentioned in the part 5th of the Constitution. And this part is known as the Union. Chapter 1. The chapter 1 is known as the executive. So president is basically the ceremonial head of the executive. He is the head of the state of Republic of India, and he is formal head or ceremonial head of the executive, legislature and judiciary. And he is also the commander-in-chief of the Indian Armed Forces. Alright, so there are various articles. When you move on to the article, let's say 54, it deals with the elections of the president. Alright, when you deal with the article, let's say 56, then it's about the term of the president. and so on. So this is about the president. We are not going to read much about this. Let's take a simple look about the Lok Sabha as well. One thing you please remember or note down that it is Article 79, which says that the parliament consists of the President of India and the two houses. So it's defined in the Article 79. Alright, so we are reading about the Lok Sabha now. So Lok Sabha is composed of representative of people chosen by direct elections. So this is the first thing about Lok Sabha. It is the house of people. That's why it's known as Lok. Well, Lok means people. And the representatives are directly elected. Alright, in the basis of universal adult suffrage, the Constitution of India allows for a maximum of 550 members of the House. So this is the strength. Maximum is 550. Alright, with 530 members representing the states and 20 representing the union territories. What is the division here? 530 plus 20. 20 UT and these states. Alright, so we'll see at present what is the condition. So at present the Lok Sabha has 543 seats filled. The Lok Sabha has 543 seats filled out of 550. So this is the current strength of Lok Sabha. This is the present strength of Lok Sabha. Now sometimes what happens, all of these 543 members of the Lok Sabha MPs, they are not present in the parliament. Someday, let's say only 500 are present. Someday even 400 are present, or so on. 543 are not always present. Alright. So these cannot take part in the voting process. Whenever there is an act or bill that is being discussed in the Lok Sabha, then only the present ones who are physically present will be voting. And this voting will decide whether the act is passed or failed. Based upon these, there are few types of majorities. So we'll see about them, the majorities. Okay, so we don't need to read more about the Lok Sabha right now, just so that we can understand the majorities here. Now let us move on to the second house, which is the Rajya Sabha. So Rajya Sabha is basically the Sabha of the states. So naturally these representatives which form the Rajya Sabha, they are indirectly elected and come from the state legislative assemblies or SLAs. They are already MLA and from there they become the member of Rajya Sabha MP. Alright, so Rajya Sabha should not consist of more than 250 members. This is according to the Constitution, the maximum strength. Alright, and in this 250 members, just a second, okay. So from these 250 members, 238 members represented in the states and union territories, and 12 members nominated by the president. So please remember the fact when we read about the Lok Sabha, then we saw 550 members. The division was 530 and 20, states and UT. But here the division is a little different. 238 will represent the states as well as UT, and 12 will be nominated by the president. The other different thing is Rajya Sabha is a permanent body. Alright, it is not dissolved. 1/3 of the members retire every second year, and this is all more detail about the Rajya Sabha. So we don't need to read these. We just needed to see the membership. So about the Lok Sabha, we saw maximum 550, 534 states, 24 UT. Current strength is 543. About the Rajya Sabha, we saw that maximum strength allowed is 250. Alright, 238 representing states and UT, while 12 should be nominated by the president. So at present, the strength of the Rajya Sabha is 245, whereas the Lok Sabha is 540 and 3. So these facts are rather dynamic, don't need to be remembered, but this is stable and because this is coming from the constitution directly, and this should be remembered. All right. So now we move on to the next part, which deals with the constitutional amendments. This was a basic introduction of what we are going to read, and we saw all the parts. So now we are talking about the constitution. So constitution, while it serves as the base towards what goes on in India, it is also a dynamic constitution. A dynamic constitution is subjected to some change as per time, without changing its basic structure. So this is a whole different thing, the basic structure. We have already made a lecture on this, you can watch that. So when we see, whenever we change something in the constitution, or mentioned in the constitution, it is called as constitutional amendment. So there's an article in the constitution itself, article 368, which tells how the constitution can be amended. It's a very special feature. Alright, so let's talk about this now. This is the main point of our video for today. Constitutional amendments. One point to remember here is that Article 368 is a part of Part 20 of the Constitution. And in this is mentioned Article 368. So Article 368 defines how the Constitution can be amended, what is the procedure, and what are the various things that can be amended, what are the majorities that are needed for these amendments. Alright, now moving forward. So what does this Article 368 say? I hope you all already know about the basic structure. Basically, it was a part of Keshwanand Bharti case, and the final judgment is that Parliament cannot amend those parts which are part of basic structure of the Constitution. Okay, so Article 368 says that Parliament under Article 368 can amend any part of the Constitution. Alright. Any part of the Constitution can be amended by the Parliament, as it is a democracy, including the fundamental rights. But without affecting the basic structure of the Constitution. But basic structure should not be affected. Alright, and I have made a detailed video on basic structure, so don't get confused by this term. Please watch the lecture. It will be very easy for you to understand. Basic structure simply is about the preamble of India, you can say. Alright, so Article 368 provides for two types of amendments. One is by special majority. Now this concept will come to justice, where we spent time in explaining the Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, etc. Okay, and another is with special majority, with ratification by half of the total state, at least half of the total states. Let's say there are 20 states, so we need 14. Alright, so there are two types of amendments mentioned in Article 368, but it does not talk about any simple majority. But there are some amendments that can be done by the simple majority as well. So let us see about them. What are those? So let us talk about the simple majority first. Simple majority would simply mean that majority of the, let's say, more than 50% of the member present and voting. So let's say we are talking about the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha maximum strength 550, current strength 543. But on a certain day, whenever the act is being discussed, only 400 people were present. So 50% people would be 200. If 51% people vote any amount or any number more than 200 plus votes are required for any bill, then the bill will be supposed to be passed. Okay, so these people are present plus these are voting. And if they pass the bill, then the bill will be seen to be passed. It will be known as simple majority. Okay, now let's talk about the second type of majority, which is special majority. So what is special majority? A bill is said to be passed if it's supported by a majority of 2/3 members present and voting. So first condition is what? 75% members present and voting. Alright, second condition is what? That overall it should be more than 50% of the total strength of house. More than 50% of the total strength of house. Okay, so let's fulfill these two conditions for Lok Sabha. So a bill is said to be passed if it's supported by a majority of 2/3 members present and voting. Alright, so there are two conditions. Supported by 2/3 members. That means 66% members present and voting. Plus, second condition is what? Supported by over 50% of the total strength of the house. Alright, so let's talk about the house. It's, let's say, Lok Sabha. So the overall strength is 550. The current strength is 543. If let's say on a certain day when it's being discussed, 400 people are present. Alright, so we need at least 66% votes. So how many votes we would need? We would need about 264 votes. Alright, now these 264 must be more than 50% of the 543. But it is not, as 50% of the 543 is 271. Alright, so this will not be passed despite having this. So more people need to be present and voting. Okay. So same thing with the Rajya Sabha also. Alright. So special majority and consent of states. So this is also a second type of special majority. A special majority. Two conditions we already saw. 66% members present and voting and more than 50% of the strength of the house. Alright. Now we additionally need consent of states. So there are only some amendments in which we need the consent of states. So when do we need? When federal structure is being changed. Federal structure means the state and center relation, or the center state relation. Alright, so when this is being changed, then we need this consent of the states also. So apart from special majority by both the houses, this please remember, special majority we need for both the houses. That means of Lok Sabha also, of Rajya Sabha also. It requires consent of half of the state legislature by a simple majority. That means simply more than 50%. Alright, so there is no time limit within which states should give their consent to the bill. Now we talk about various different type of the special majorities, as the special majority is not only mentioned by the article 368. It's mentioned in the article 368, yes, but it is also mentioned in the article 249 as well as 361. Alright, so 368 majority we saw, majority of 2/3 members present plus 50% of the house. 249, let us see, 2/3 member present and voting, present plus voting. This is required in case of empowering parliament to make laws on some issues included in a state list. So this deals with some issues, certain things, let's say. Let's talk about the 361. So 2/3 of the total membership of the house. 2/3 of the total membership of the house, not the present and voting. So please remember these integracies. They can be asked in exam directly into the prelims. Okay, that the special majority defined in this article deals with the or defines a special majority like this. Okay, so let's move further and see what is absolute majority. There's one more type of majority, absolute. So absolute majority is more than 50% of the total strength of the house. Pass it by total strength of the house. Let's say it is 543. So if it is being passed by more than 50% of these votes, then it will be known as absolute majority. There's one more type of majority known as the effective majority. So refers to a majority of more than 50% of the effective strength of the house. All right, of the effective strength of the house. One more point to be remembered is that this process of amendment has been taken from the South African Constitution. From the South African Constitution. What has been borrowed? The process of amendment of the Constitution. Article 368. All right. Now let us see further about the procedure for amendment of the Constitution. So it can be initiated only by the introduction of a bill for the purpose in either houses of the parliament. So the first thing that comes to the mind is it can be introduced in both the houses. The bill can be introduced either by a minister or a private member and does not require the permission of the president. President permission is not required. The bill must be passed in each house by a special majority, that is, a majority of the total membership of the house and a majority of 2/3 of the member of the house present and voting. And each house must pass the bill separately. Separately, each house must pass the bill. There is no provision for joint sitting of the house. Joint sitting is not allowed in the case of constitutional amendment. These are little intricacies that you can learn. Okay, let's move further. So if the bill seeks to amend the provisions of the constitution, it must be ratified by the legislature of half the states by a simple majority. After passage of the bill by both the houses, it is presented to the president. So after Lok Sabha plus Rajya Sabha, it goes to the president. The president must give his assent to the bill. He can neither withhold his assent nor return the bill for reconsideration of the parliament. So this is a formality only. He can neither withhold the assent not return it. All right. Okay. So after the president assent, the bill becomes an act. So let us see which of the amendments are such, which can be, just a second. Okay, which can be dealt by a simple majority. Simple majority ones are not as per the Article 368. At Article 368 does not define simple majority, or any amendments as per Article 368 are not passed by the simple majority. Okay. So one is the admission or establishment of formation of new states. Formation of new states, alteration of areas, boundaries, names of existing states. Abolition or creation of legislative councils. Second schedule related provisions, quorum in parliament, salaries, allowances, rules of procedure in parliament, use of English language, number of puissances, conferring more power to Supreme Court, etc., etc. Citizenship, election, fifth and sixth schedule. Alright, so these are the ones which can be passed by the simple majority. Alright, now let's come to the more important ones, the special majority requirement ones. Okay, so a special majority is required in the case of any changes in the fundamental right, DPSP, or any other categories which is not covered in the simple majority. Alright, plus the third one is the special majority plus consent of more than 50% of the states. So these ones are election of the president. Please remember, election of the president, which we already saw, Article 53. Then extent of executive power of union and the states, union and states. Whenever there is union and states, then please remember the consent of states. Supreme Court and High Court. Supreme Court plus High Court, any changes in these? Any of the list in 7th schedule. Alright, representation of states in parliament and power of parliament to amend the constitution and its procedures. Alright. So that would require, this is the most important one, power of the parliament to amend the constitution and its procedure. Alright, that means Article 368 itself. So if you want to alter the Article 368, Article 368 tells how to alter itself by special majority plus 50% of the states. Okay, so this will be required for any kind of amendment. Now, in the next lecture, we'll see which are the important amendments in India till now, from the making of constitution till 2023. So we'll see these. We'll make a list of these also. All right. So that we'll deal in the second part or the next lecture. So this is Yatharth here. I hope you learned a lot from this lecture. We'll carry on in the next lecture. For now, I'm signing off. Thank you very much. Have a very bright day. Keep studying and keep growing.